My guest is the Senate A and B Chief, good friend, Senator Roger Thompson. Senator, it's been a while. It's good to see you, sir.
It's great to see you again. I know you've tried to reach out several times during session, and I've just not had time, but it's great to be with you today.
It's great to have you, and I understand how busy that you've been. It was a monumental session, which has turned into a monumental June, July. Who knows where we're going to go? Let's start with what you just said recently, which was very newsworthy. Your discussion with folks about the fact that you would like to see some oversight restored to the tourism department. Now, for us old timers that have been around for a long time, we know tourism has been, the last time I remember an investigative body with subpoena power, it was about tourism and the State Department of Health. So legislature gave the governor a lot of power. It sounds like, at least in the Senate side, and from your standpoint, correct me if I'm wrong, but you want to take some of that back, or at least give some more oversight to the executive branch.
Absolutely. We did. And I cast the yes vote, making that a direct appointee of the governor and making the commission an advisory commission. And I've told a number of people that I really believed at the time it would work. The evidence suggests otherwise. And we have a responsibility to the people of Oklahoma, to the taxpayer, to watch after their dollars. And there's a loft report that talked about what went on. I know there's a lot of news today. There's a company that's in the news. This doesn't really focus so much on that company, in my mind, as it does upon the oversight that should be at tourism, with a commission would have powers that says, we're not going to do this. There needs to be a check and balances. And evidently we didn't have that. So I believe, on behalf of the taxpayers of Oklahoma, let's go back and let's put an oversight committee back in place. That's the commission. The change that I will make is because before 2018, those members were serving at the will of the governor. And the change that I plan to make is they can be removed, but only for just cause. So they cannot be removed because you're not doing what the governor wants you to do today. We want these individuals to be thoroughly vetted in their nomination, thoroughly vetted in their confirmation process to the Senate, and then serve the people of Oklahoma. That's what we need.
So ultimately, these board members would be more beholden to the state of Oklahoma than to the executive branch. Am I correct in that assumption?
That's exactly right. And I think they need to be, because it's the state of Oklahoma's dollars that they're overseeing. When I read the loft report and I see that we have over $16 million that could possibly been wasted, and we'll wait till the investigation of the OSBI and the district attorney is completed there, but possibly could have been wasted. We don't need that. We need to make sure every dollar is spent where it needs to go. I think it's our responsibility as legislators to protect those dollars, to make sure those commissions are in place. And so, again, I'll be the first one to say, back in 2018, I cast a vote. I thought it would work. The evidence suggests otherwise.
You're a longtime journalist, and you've been in your position as the A and B chief there in the Senate for some time now as well. I noticed you chose your language carefully. There are some of us that are somewhat troubled by what appears to be, at least in some in the media, that have done a rush to judgment, that this is the name that company scandal and whatnot, and yet that company's not spoken. I'm sure they're lawyered up, but the presumption of innocence in these sorts of projects, we have government officials, we've got a Department of Tourism, and you've got an aggressive media in this. Where, as a journalist and as a state legislator and a leader in our state legislature, come down in terms of how to best get information to the public without violating the tenet of the justice system, which is innocent until proven guilty? How do you report on that, take involvement in terms of watching what's going on there, and get that message out to the public?
Well, and Scott, I really appreciate the question. One of the things that I tell the reporters at my newspaper on a regular basis is you cannot become a part of the story or the story. And so, first of all, I think we've got a lot of reporters out there that are trying to be first in line, get their name out and see what happens, and they almost become part of this story. When I look back at this particular story, it's not the business that we see in the media. When I look back at this story, what led to that business being in the media? What led to that business being in the media are decisions that were not made by that business. Decisions that were made by the Department of Tourism. And I believe some of those decisions were made unilaterally by people at tourism, again, that they're under investigation. We'll find out exactly whether that's right or wrong. And what I see are taxpayers' dollars being wasted. So I think in journalism, let's report the facts. I mean, we're obligated to do that. But here's the facts. The company that's in the news has not been convicted of anything yet, period. So they are innocent until proven guilty. What we do know, what's in the news, and what I read in the Loft report is that at tourism, we've got an issue. We've got an issue how that we are issuing invoices. We've got an issue how we're paying those invoices. And we've got a check and balances issue to make sure that we're using taxpayer money wisely. Those things we know for sure. Those things have been documented in the Loft report. Director Jackson's done a great job. Those are the things we ought to be reporting on. And those are the things I believe that the legislature needs to look at. What can we do to ensure that does not happen again?
One final question on this topic. I've noticed there's a difference. The House has appointed a special investigative committee. The Senate has not. Could you explain the differences in the two bodies in terms of moving forward?
Absolutely. It is my position, and I am the one of the directors of the chairman of the Loft committee, and I believe the Loft did a great job. They have been empowered. They have investigated, and from that particular Loft report, OSBI is engaged, and also the district attorney. And so I believe the Loft committee has done the work. I think anything beyond this is more political than it is policy driven.
Let me shift to the legislative and the politics. When we saw the end of the session, there was obviously, especially on the other side of the rotunda, some real enmity in terms of moving forward. It started, which I think, I want to clarify to make sure that Senate was in on this as well, but it appeared to me that the entire legislature was united in taking back that authority from the governor's office on AARPA funds. Now, is my first premise correct that the Senate was supportive of this?
Yes, in discussing the AARPA funds.
Yes, sir.
Absolutely. We had $160 million that we had through our working groups. They've done great work through the joint committee. That money had not moved forward. And it is the intent of getting that money out. We're one of the few states left not getting AARPA money out to the people. And so there have been a number of discussions with the governor's team that we wanted that to move forward. I realized that it seemed to be sudden to the media, and that's fine, and to the taxpayers of Oklahoma. But I had talked to some in the administration 6 weeks before that and told them this is a possibility. If you do not move the money forward, we're going to do what we call a nuclear option. And we're going to run legislation. We're going to sweep that money. We're going to set up an account, and we're going to run it through the legislative process. And the governor can still accept it or he can veto it. And then we'll go back and if we want to override his veto, we can. But we want this money to get out to the people. This is a legislative driven process. And again, we sat down with all the parties as the AARPA money came in. We established a process that says that there will be working groups, a joint committee, a steering committee made up of 6 legislators and 5 from the executive branch. We'd move it through, and the governor would sign off on it and move it forward. I met with the governor on August the 10th before I went to Ohio to look at children's mental health, and that's been a passion of AARPA funds. The governor told me on August the 10th he would honor the process. And yet we had $7.5 million to start the children's mental health on his desk for 3 months before there was any action. And so that's not what we're after. Again, this is after helping the people of Oklahoma. And that's what this must be about, is the people, not about politics.
Is there anything, I'm not asking you to speak for the governor, was there anything structurally that was keeping that process so slow under control of the executive? And if you can't speak to that, is there anything structural that can't have the legislature moving forward with all rapidity to get this thing done as we watch those funds begin to whittle because of inflation, which may hit 9% this week? So, I mean, for people like me that watch that, this is a real concern.
It is a real concern, and I believe we will move it forward. It is my opinion. I think that there are several that we're looking for reasons why it would not work and slowing down the process rather than how can we make this work? How can we get it out? We want to be able to do that. I can't speak for the governor on why his team did not move as we in the legislature thought they should. If you look at the process of moving the funds, it was almost unanimous to call ourselves into special session to be able to spend the funds. I think we had in the Senate a total of 5. That's Democrat and Republican that did not sign. And so I know in the Republican caucus, all but one of all but I think 4 of our members signed. In the Democrat caucus, all of those signed except 1. And to be able to move forward, there's just a great deal of frustration in the legislature to get this money and get it moving. It's a bipartisan, and both the House and the Senate agreed we've got to take action because, again, people need money out there. Nonprofits need money to help people who are hurting. You brought up inflation. And right now, the governor calls us back into special session for inflation relief. Man, we're sitting on, $900 million of AARPA funds that would go a long ways if we could just work through the process.
I think the Fed's going to move in the next 24 hours or so. They're going to continue to try to do everything they can, including maybe plunge us into recession with their policy. They were late at the switch, but as you're watching this, with all the national, international implications of what's happening, does that change the geometry of where you think the special session and the 2 special sessions are moving forward? Is there more urgency right now than before?
Well, it has been my position as the appropriations chair to protect our dollars. Scott, when I first got here, we were $600 million in the red. My second year, $800 million. My third year, we were $1.3 billion in the red. And I still remember 2017 and 2018, when we're trying to raise revenue, teachers are here at the Capitol wanting a raise. State Question 640 that passed by a vote of the people in 1992 requires 75% to raise revenue. And so we're in an area today where we have revenue. We have that in the bank, but I want to talk about that in just a moment. At the same time, that's so easy to give away at a 51% vote. If we watch the national news, we're in a bear market. If we watch the national news, we're talking, as you brought up, raising interest rates 3/4 to 1 point. I believe that's going to slow the economy down too quick, too fast, and we'll hit that recession. And that's going to bring us not to the edge of the cliff, but over the cliff in some of our income. We're already beginning to see that there's a squeeze on some of the expendable income that people have. And that's going to run our tax dollars down, our sales tax dollars down, our vehicle motor tax down, some of those purchases down. And within the next 18 months, we're going to need every dime that we have. And I want to talk about those dimes just for a moment. Altogether, we run a little over a $30 billion a year business, a $30 billion a year budget. Today, we have over $1 billion after we finish this fiscal year in the rainy day fund. We'll have money in the revenue stabilization fund. We've got money over at the Healthcare Authority in our Federal Medical Assistance Program, the FMAP money. And then we're sitting on probably close to $800 to $1 billion in cash. So it's about $3 billion altogether. So we've got about 10% of our total annual spend either in savings or in cash. Now, $3 billion is a lot of money. I understand that. It's a whole lot of money. But I'm just wondering how many people are sitting around their dinner tables and they look at their annual spend. It takes them $15,000 to $20,000 a year to run their household. And they look at their savings account and they've got $20,000 or $2,000 in their savings account, about 10% of their annual spend. And they're having discussions. I think we have too much money in savings. I think we need to find somebody to give this to. And I think we need to cut our income because of the fact that we've got too much in savings. And so if we look at what we need to do on a statewide level is not only look to today, but we need to look to the future. And because some of us have lived through the days whenever that we did not look to the future and we were really had our backs to the wall trying to come up with a way to keep education going, keep public safety going, keep this state going.
And some gray beards like you and me who, my friend David Dank used to have this saying about these sorts of things, being cautious, but, being judicious about what you're doing. He used to say, Bud, you're talking to Noah about the flood. And
there you go.
So I'm listening to Noah on this. All right. You're saying you're concerned as I am about the future and where things are going. We've had a ton of federal money into the coffers. That's going to dry up down the road. And right now you're in the special session. There's a lot of discussions about, I think the House came with probably 15 different proposals yesterday. That's going to be something the Senate's going to be seeing, including some tax cuts, the grocery tax, all of these things. Where are you and where does leadership stand on what you want to get accomplished during this special session?
Well, as far as the special session goes on the tax cuts, In the Senate, we're wanting reform. Let's talk about what taxes we can get rid of, what taxes we can replace that with if we need to. Can we actually lower our tax base out to the citizens, but broaden that base? And so we're more interested in not just throwing something at the wall and see what sticks, but what's really good for the state of Oklahoma in the long run. And so at this particular time, there is no interest on our part of just having a bill that has not gone through a committee process. No one's talked about, they don't know how to implement it, and just run that off of a floor and throw it over here and throw it on our floor and vote on it and say, hey, that's what we're going to do for the people of Oklahoma. That's not our plan. That's not where we're moving forward. Pro Tem Treat's doing a great job of organizing a committee to look at this. He was very articulate and early on in simply saying that we want to do something good for Oklahoma. And I'd like to remind the viewers that we did last year. We cut the income tax by 1/4 point. That's yet to be fully realized in the state. Corporate tax was cut last year. The restoration of the earned income tax credit last year. The Senate also this year honored a promise. We told the people back in 2017 that we're going to, add 1.25% to the vehicle tax. We need it, and when we have the money, we'll take it away. It was part of our budget deal this year. Both bodies passed it. The governor vetoed it. The Senate overrode that veto because that's real relief out to the people of Oklahoma. So we want to do what makes a difference, not what makes a statement.
As you move forward in this, or it sounds to me like there's a long way to go before there's an agreement. One of the things that's hardest for media to do is really talk about what's between the bricks in terms of what's going on. And as you understand, as we alluded to earlier on, there are some, this may be one of the most political sessions I've seen years in a long time. The irony of which is that there are supermajorities of Republicans in both the House and the Senate, and the executive branch is held by Republicans, Governor Stitt. But yet what I read between the lines, I don't think it's like looking at an iceberg. I use this analogy all the time. Here's a little bit of ice, but there's a whole bunch under the water line right now. We've got an election 2 weeks from today at the end of this month. Are you hopeful that there's going to be the ability to put aside emotions, personalities, and get something done in the near future to get everybody on the same page and moving forward? We've had some great things happen in our state, but in the past few weeks, it just appears to me that there's such division that it makes things hard to get done.
Well, absolutely. And this is my 8th year and the most political that I've ever served in. There are some days we don't talk about policy as we should. We talk about politics. You and I just finished a great discussion on what I believe we ought to do fiscally. I've had people in this building say, that's good policy. It's not good politics. Well, the people expect us to get something done in policy. And politics is not a bad word. I think we need to be involved in it because that's what we do. We're political people. However, at the same time, we are the only advocate that the people of Oklahoma have. And so we need to be up here talking about where we change and how we move forward. Now, what's going to happen after the primary on June 28th? I don't know. I know that right now I listen to a lot of people who run for office because they've got one issue on their mind. And that could either be, fixing roads, or it could be a social issue. Those individuals that get here, that's all they're interested in. And that makes it very difficult to work in. We live in an environment where that not everybody understands. There's 3 co-equal branches of government. Is that the legislature does not work for the governor. And we have our job to do, Article 5 of the Constitution, then Article 6 is what the governor does. And so we've got to learn, I think, to stay in our lanes and to do our job. And when we stay in our lanes and do our job, democracy works. And that's where we need to be.
Give me an idea of 2 or 3 issues right now that are completely out of the limelight, of the spotlight rather, that are crucial for you, that may not be that's the top 2 or 3 things people are talking about, but that worry you the most. I think we've alluded to it earlier, but also things moving forward that we as consumers of news and taxpayers and citizens need to be aware of that maybe we're not taking seriously or understand right now.
One of the areas that I've been working on for some time is mental health. And we added more money to mental health this year. We're working on a children's acute mental health facility. We look at some of the violence that's happened, whether that's in Texas or in Tulsa. a lot of those are mental health issues. And I think we change the direction of our state if we can change a lot of the mental health. And when I was a young man, that's been many years ago, we didn't talk much about mental health. And I'm glad we finally have reached a period in our life where we realize that there's nothing wrong with talking about mental health and tried to fund that. I had a conversation with the commissioner of mental health a while back, and I've got a meeting coming up. And I said, we want to put money into mental health and do a better job in mental health than we've done, but I just don't want to throw money at it. It's not the idea, if you'll give us money, we'll do a better job. That doesn't work. What job can we do, and what's that going to cost to be able to move forward? So I think our number one issue for us is to continue to look at mental health. Coming out of the pandemic, every segment of our society, from our children to our veterans, needs more attention to mental health, and we want to do that. I think another area that we need to keep our eyes on is our hospitals and how that we fund our hospitals and moving forward. I'm a rural legislator. I'm concerned about healthcare in rural Oklahoma. Good news is, in the last census, it showed that people moved to Tulsa and Oklahoma City. They didn't move out of state. We're thankful people are staying home, and our population is actually growing. But in rural Oklahoma, healthcare is becoming a real issue. And for me, I'm thankful for the tribes. They have stepped up in my Senate district, and every healthcare facility that we have outside of Henrietta is owned and managed by the tribes. And I'm very thankful for that. And so we want to continue that partnership and moving forward, which brings up probably a third issue, is that we must begin a more solid, genuine conversation with our tribal governments. The Supreme Court has ruled on the reservations. I believe there's some challenges that we need to face there. I think we can face those challenges, but we do that sitting around a dinner table and not having press releases.
Several have mentioned that to me as well. That does seem like the work's cut out on that.
Yes, sir.
Senator Roger Thompson, thanks for your time. I miss getting to see you more often, but I know how difficult it is. There's only 24 hours in a day, 7 days a week.
That's right.
You've only got a business to run. You're out there helping as Senate leadership, making this policy, trying to make these decisions. So I'm grateful for any time that I get to visit with you.
Thank you, sir. It's been an honor to be here.